In the 50s, there was an epidemic of polio, and my husband felt that it was a good thing to get the children out of the city where they would be in close contact with other children in swimming pools, and they loved water, they loved swimming. And we had been in Florida previously, but other summers, and so we left the city and went to Florida with my mother, and we all drove down to Florida, and had an apartment on the beach on Miami Beach, and we had friends who were living over in Miami, our friends who had been our neighbors in Cincinnati, and they were very close friends, and they had children like the ages of our children, and so we spent the whole entire summer in Florida, and the children loved the water and loved the beach, and looked forward to it every year that we went. As we traveled to Florida, we stopped for a visit in the Smoky Mountains, and that became a place where we would take trips in other summers, portions of the summer, and we often went to Gatlinburg, the town of Gatlinburg, and we visited with my brother-in-law, my husband's brother, and his wife, Charlie. His brother, my husband's brother, was Charlie, and his wife was Elsie Hyman, and they had their children, Janet and Elizabeth and Sherry, and at that time there were just the three girls, and they eventually had a little boy who was the pride and joy of the whole family, because we were all specializing in girls. But then Jay became the key member of the Hyman clan. But those summers in Florida and Gatlinburg were very special, and very special memories. Since I had been a Girl Scout growing up, I loved the life that I knew when I was a little girl, and so I was anxious to see that they had that same experience. So I became a Girl Scout leader, troop leader, and the meeting, it started as a brownie group, the younger scouts, the early grades of grade school, and the lower grades, and they met at my home, and we turned the basement into the brownie meeting room, and the kids would come after school for the meetings, and we had all kind of projects, and we made things. We made all kind of craft work, and learning songs, and getting the kids ready as they became older to go to camp, teaching them how to prepare themselves to go to Girl Scout camp, which was a camp at Foster's, Ohio, and it was called Camp Butterworth. So they loved it, and it was a nice and warm experience for them to have the kids meeting at their home, and they wore the uniform, and they became as interested in it as I was, and that was good and healthy. On my honor, I will try to do my duty to God and my country, to help other people at all times, and to obey the Girl Scout laws. That's what the pledge. Having three daughters, you spend a lot of time in the stores at least when they're, well, actually after they're 8 or 9 years old, they become feminine and interested in clothes and fancy things. When they were in the 7th grade, there was a dance classes that were held at the Jewish Community Center, and then they became interested in boys, and the boys. It was a nice social activity for the girls, and then they, of course, they had to have a different outfit to wear for every time, and we spent a lot of time and money keeping them dressed and keeping them happy. When they were little, they went to dance class at the conservatory of music, which had this wonderful teacher, Marion LaCour, who was quite an outstanding ballerina. And in fact, one of her students, Suzanne Farrell, became an outstanding ballerina in New York. Well, worldwide known ballerina, but Suzanne Farrell was in my daughter's ballet class, Judy's class, I believe. She was, or Susan's class, but they loved it, and they were in the ballet classes and the performances that they had the shows, and we always looked forward to that in their fancy costumes, and it was a very fine experience, and none of them became ballerinas, but it was a good experience. With 3 children and all in school at the same time, I was always up at school, and I was always interested that they were, having a good education, and that the school was equipped properly, and that could I be of help, and so forth. And I became president of the PTA. And the school was an outstanding school with wonderful, wonderful teachers. And the kids, I think, still talk about their teachers, and I remember them by name and fond memories. They had one activity that developed at that school was called the Oregon Trail, and the teacher in the 5th grade, Dorothy Denick, organized this as they studied about the Western history of our country. The Oregon Trail became a key spot, a key topic, and around that story they developed this project where in the spring the children had costumes. Their parents planned. The girls wore Western long skirts and sunbonnets, and the boys wore the leather pants or whatever, the Western, the jackets and so forth. And they made a covered wagon out of their little pull wagon, a red wagon that most boys had, and they made a covered wagon out of it. Everybody gathered on a certain day at the schoolyard, and all of the parents came and gathered in the schoolyard, and the kids were in their costumes and all ready to go on the Oregon Trail. There was a wedding held on the trail, and Susan married Alan Zeff. And to this day, when she sees Alan, he tells people around him, "She's my first wife." And they were married on the trail. Then there was a delivery. A baby was born. And they take a doll, and then a baby that died on the trail, and they had a funeral on the trail. This all happened out at Sharon Woods. They got from the schoolyard, and Mr. Warren, the principal of the school, was out there, and he raised his hands and blessed everybody and to have a safe journey. And all the parents saw them off, and they piled into buses, and they took them to Sharon Woods. And the trail was mapped out previously by the teachers, and they traveled and had all of the experiences that many of were duplications of the real Oregon Trail. Before the year that Barbara was to have the experience of the Oregon Trail, she was at camp, and a summer camp, a Girl Scout camp actually, and we had the opportunity to buy a house in Amberley Village, and we made the contract to buy the house. And when Barbara returned from camp and heard that we took her to see the house, and her first reaction was, "You mean we're going to move before the Oregon Trail?" Oh no, and she was just heartbroken. We had this beautiful house compared to what we had, and it was nothing to her because she was missing the Oregon Trail, and she has never forgiven me. And whenever they talk about the Oregon Trail, she feels so left out and so neglected, and it shows you what that meant to those people. So hopefully one day she'll find it in her heart to forgive me. But here, you never know when you're doing a good thing, and I thought I was going to please her with this gorgeous room she was going to have. Didn't mean a thing. She was going to miss the Oregon Trail. In Bond Hill PTA, it was the custom of the whole council of PTAs in Cincinnati, which was beautifully operated, run by a wonderful group of people. Each school had a sister school in the basin. We called it the basin of the city, and the underprivileged, you might say. And for some reason, it didn't seem fair to me that those schools whose parents weren't able to provide the things that the parents on the so-called on the hill could do for the school, they didn't have the equipment that we had. And in visiting the sister school, the 6th District School on Elm Street, I noticed, and I spoke to the principal and different people on my board, that they didn't have the slide projectors, for instance, that we had. In Bond Hill School, I think every class, every room had a slide projector. Why couldn't we share? Why couldn't those slide projectors be shared? And we'll give some of our slide projectors to the sister school. But the principal wasn't for that. He wasn't he didn't see it the way we saw it. But it annoyed me very, very much, and I took it to the Board of Education to see why those schools are needing their children need it as much as our children, but nothing happened. Politics. During the period of my presidency and the educational channel of television, Cincinnati WCET, was being formed, and it was very much in need of financing. And they approached the Council of PTAs and for contributions, and I was very much interested in that happening. And I recall keeping the meeting going until 6 o'clock, which was like 2 hours beyond when we'd be out of the meeting, because some of the children were still waiting out in the hall for their parents to take them home. And I was trying to get the vote. And we did finally get it, and it was $1,000 from our treasury to go to the establishment of WCET, and it became a very good investment. I think that most people in becoming involved in the religion, it really gets started when they're children, to educate and send to school or church or synagogue, whatever. It becomes through the children. And we wanted our children to, they did go to religious school at the Wise Temple. We belonged to the temple, and I was as active as I could be in certain ways. The rabbi was Rabbi Albert Goldman, who we became quite friendly with, and he established a study group held in the evening for members who are the one or the other of them had been non-Jewish, were converted to Judaism, and we studied with them in the evening, and they had books for us, and we met. I think it was like once a month. I don't recall exactly, but it was a very worthwhile time spent, and you prepared a lesson for the next meeting. And my sister-in-law and brother-in-law were in the group, and I'm still very, very close and very fond of Rabbi Goldman, and he likewise felt close to our family and my children, and that my children were active in the temple, in the religious school department, and had fond memories of that also. And Judy was the first bat mitzvah. Boys at the age of 13 go through a ceremony becoming an adult Jew, and the girls are a bat mitzvah. It's a ceremony in the temple, and Judy was the first one in Cincinnati. Coming from a non-Jewish background, my family observed the religious holidays, mainly Christmas and Easter, and so we didn't have those holidays at my home. We were Jewish, and so we went to Grandma's, and the kids would get there in time to help trim the tree or find the Easter eggs hiding all over the place, and Easter baskets, and they enjoyed Grandma and Aunt Kay's holiday, and it was fun for them and fun for all of us. And my mother loved having them, and my sister made such a preparation for the kids, as if they were her own grandchildren. They were her nieces, but they adored her, and they looked forward to all the times that were spent with Grandma and Aunt Kay. My husband, when the war with the Second World War was the war of Hitler, with Hitler. The stories were coming out of Germany of what the war was all about, and he was very, very touched and deeply moved by it, and he volunteered to services. He joined the Army, and as a physician. Susan was born in May, and this was in December of '43. And So went first to Texas, Camp Breckenridge, I believe it was called, not Breckenridge, whatever the first camp was that he was in Texas. And he was there for several, I think 6 weeks. And then he went to Fort in Chicago. Camp Sheridan? I'm not sure. Right out of Chicago. And so I didn't see him, had the new baby, I mean, a young child, and he was in Chicago. He came home once in that period of time. Then later he was transferred to Camp Spartanburg in South Carolina, and we joined him. We rented the house to someone who joined him in Camp Croft in Spartanburg, South Carolina. While we were in Spartanburg, South Carolina, which was a place where the German prisoners of war were kept, my husband was told by the men who accompanied these prisoners from the boat, from the ship in New York, on the train to the camp in Spartanburg, South Carolina. The experience that they had, these prisoners of war, the German prisoners of war, when the train would stop for them to eat, to get off the train and have a meal, they went to a restaurant, and they went in the front door of the restaurant and sat at the tables. The black American soldiers, United States soldiers, had to go to the back door of the restaurant to get a handout. Their food was given to them outside the restaurant. This was in the South. This was the way it was then. And my husband was deeply, deeply impressed and disgusted with the whole situation. And I still feel it too. I get very tense about it when I think about what happened. But that was the war. That was what was going on at that time. And thank goodness today it's not like that in the South and in Spartanburg, South Carolina. During the time of his service, apparently in order to impress the soldiers who would be going over to Germany to fight and to show them what they were fighting about, they had these movies of what had been taking, why they're fighting. And some of them were of the concentration camps, the treatment of the Jews who were being slaughtered, who were being killed, who were being mistreated so horribly. As I say, and I've said it over many times, that Hitler made serious Jews out of many people who took it so casually. And as my husband, he was a Jew, but he didn't live a day and night and hour by hour. But he felt then, after seeing that this is a time when I have to stand on my 2 feet and speak out and do whatever I can do so that this state of Israel will be a reality and a place for Jews to live in freedom. And this is his life. Became his life. I've said it. Hitler made a real Jew out of my husband. After my husband's discharge from the Army, he had been so impressed with what he had seen and heard of the war going on in Germany and the effect of Hitler upon the lives of the Jews in Germany, in that area, that he was determined and dedicated his life to working for the good and helping Jews establish a homeland and securing their future. And he did this in many ways in any Zionist organizations and the Jewish National Fund, which was helping in the land and planting trees in Israel and helping establish homes for the immigrants. And our life was worked around all of those meetings and fundraising for those purposes. During the period after my husband left the Army and became very active in Bonds for Israel, which was a fundraising for Israel, bonds were sold. One of the ways of selling the bonds was through fashion shows that women were in, Jewish women of the community. The clothing, beautiful clothing by the Israeli dress designers were brought over, and the wonderful fashion shows were held usually at the Netherland Plaza in the Hall of Mirrors. And I was one of the models modeling these beautiful clothes. And it was a wonderful way of raising funds for Bonds for Israel. And following many other ways of selling the trees for Jewish National Fund, raising money in many ways, and of course the trips to Israel were planned, and so that people could see what was being done, and we wanted our children to see that too, and they studied about it and learned about it, and we took them on a trip to Israel in 1960. My husband and I took our first trip to Israel in 1960 by way of Europe, and we were in Israel for the dedication of the Hadassah Hospital in Kerem. It was Hadassah has always done hospital work in Israel, and the founder of Hadassah, as Henrietta Zold, was an American woman, a nurse, who lived in Baltimore, and she has, from the early days of Jewish settlement in Israel, in Palestine actually, she was active in medical care, hospital care in that area of the world. And we were anxious to be there for the dedication, and we traveled through many parts of the country and spent 2 weeks, I believe it was, visiting and seeing the wonderful land that we had been supporting and working to help. And it was a fascinating, wonderful trip, and we looked forward to being able to take our children one day, and that we were able to do in 1962. And we took them for a summer spent in Israel, and they, of course, have never forgotten it, and they have returned themselves on many trips since then. My husband was a gardener. He loved the yard. He loved, one of the reasons we bought the property we did on Glen Acres Drive was it was a beautiful garden, and the grounds were lovely, and he looked forward to spending his time on Thursday afternoon, which was away from the office, to be in the garden. And it might have been that year of maybe around the spring that 1,000 bulbs were tulip bulbs, which he loved so much, and there was a special place in the garden for the tulips. 1,000 of them were planted to surprise him. In May, of 1966, we were working in the garden together, the two of us, and I was in one end of the garden, sweeping up the cuttings or cleaning up some of those cuttings, and he was in another part of the yard, and I noticed that he was on the ground. I turned around and he was lying on the ground next to a mower, and the mower was running. And I was shocked. I thought he was fixing the mower, that he was looking at it, trying to see what was wrong, and I started to run, and as I approached, I could see that he was not moving. And then it hit me that what had happened. And I stood there for a second, not knowing whether to run in the house to the phone, no cell phones then, and or to go to him. I still, to this day, don't know what I did. Somehow, the Life Squad came, people in the neighborhood, I got a message to my brother-in-law, Charles, to my husband's brother, and he was there. I don't know over what period of time, but at any rate, the doctor who was visiting up in my neighborhood, Dr. Margolis, came and pronounced him dead. He had died instantly, and there was no need to take him to the hospital. They didn't take him to the hospital. The fire department came and took him to the undertaker. He was dead. That was May the 19th, 1966. I was active in the Jewish community, active to a certain extent at the temple. I was active with my mother. I had a mother, 1966, how old would she? She was born in 1880. Oh, she was my age that I am now. Yes, when the baby was born, we went to California. I took her on the train, and she was 86 or 87, figure it out, from 1880 to 1966. And she was busy baking cookies and doing things at my daughter's house in California. So then I became concentrated on my mother, and took her on trips. I drove to Kentucky. I drove everywhere with her just to get her out of the house and to do things. My sister was employed and out of town very often, and so my life really revolved around my mother and my family. My daughter Judy lived with me. We sold the house and moved into an apartment, and that was in 1968. And so she was my roommate, and we had a lot of fun together, and planned her wedding eventually from the two of us, and life went on. Some people have asked me what it's like to be a grandmother, and it's great. And I am a great grandmother, and it keeps you busy. Hearing the news stories every day, what this one said and what that one spoke, and the latest tricks of all the kids and all of the excitement and all their education, and who's going to graduate from college this year, who's going to get married this year, and so the years move on, and it's life is wonderful, and life has been great to me. One family is on the West Coast. another is on the East Coast, another is in Israel. And unfortunately, they're spread all over, and it's very seldom that we're all one place. Even the wedding that's coming up this summer, the ones from Israel, I won't be able to be there, I don't think. At this point, they don't think so. But, I mean, what can I tell you? It's great being a grandmother, to see them growing, maturing, hearing of their stories, their education. It's a relationship that is great, and the opportunities I've had to babysit when they were younger. It's been, I'm very closely involved in knowing what's going on in their lives, and I'm pleased that they're growing to be wonderful adult people. Looking back on my life, 2004, and when I say 4, 24 jumps into my mind, and that's when I went to school for the first 1924. I started school, and then I jumped to 34, and that is getting close to high school, junior high school. And it was all fun, and having fun and good times, and having my mother being such a wonderful mother, and my sister Kay being always there with me. Mary was there part of the time. And meeting all the friends I had, the playmates growing up, the high school. I went to a public high school where I met a whole group of new people, met wonderful friends, starting to date and having good times. That was all fun and games, and meeting my wonderful husband and his family, and my wonderful friend Elsie Hyman, my sister-in-law. But we were just not sister-in-laws, we were really close friends. And we lived in the same building after she sold her home and I had sold my home, and we lived in the same building, and we're friends, sisters, not just sisters-in-law, we were sisters. And all of the good friends I've had, and I'm not even thinking of. I've taken wonderful trips, spent time in Florida, been to Israel many times, California, and I've seen the world, not all of it, but I have more spaces to cover and more miles to collect. And I'm enjoying. It's been a good life. The life I've lived hasn't been a life of luxury. I've had, I think, most of the things that were necessary and pleasurable, and sometimes I felt they were luxurious. I would suggest to my children, the little ones growing up, that they take care of their things and look and see what they have, and not count what's new, what am I going to get now, what's new, but enjoy day by day and the fun that just being together with family, and to sit at the dinner table and discuss, and not have a meal that's running in one person's running into the house and the other's running out of the house, passing each other and not knowing what's going on in each other's lives, but to be close to one another and it developed that love and relationship that nobody can buy it. You have to have it built in, and it's worth everything in the world. Just a close relationship with your brothers, sisters, mother, father, cousins, all of them, that's my advice to anyone, family or anybody, to not look for it in the department store, but look for it around you. Looking forward, I know that I have doctor's appointments scheduled, and that's probably going to go on for a while because I came through an episode of cancer, and I got through it very well. And the chemotherapy experience was interesting, and I look forward to enjoying more travel and enjoying the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren as they arrive. I have lots of things planned. Well, each person I've known, relatives, friends, know me from a different angle. So people who will remember me according to our relationship. And I can't be remembered for one thing or another. I'm just Anita.